Past players, past legends, past legends.
Tonight, we're greatly appreciate. We've got the cult figure of the Adelaide Football Club in Wayne Weidemann aboard. The Weed, 19 games for West Torrens, 57 for Woodville West Torrens, 68 games for Adelaide, 26 goals between 91 and 96. And then coaching-wise, since he's made Liz Taylor pale into significance on the marriage stakes, Weeds, that many clubs. And we're going to have a bit of fun there. Welcome aboard, Weed.
Thanks very much for having me, boys.
Thanks for joining us, mate. We take a bit of a deep dive into each of our guests and where they all started. And, mate, Fish Creek seems to come up quite a bit there. And the under-8s, you're probably a little terror back then.
Did you have the mullet then too, Weed?
No, not quite there. Mum wouldn't let me have that. That only turned into a mullet when I left home, like we all tend to do when we haven't got our mothers and fathers with us. So, yeah, the hair grew out of control when I was up in Canberra, but certainly didn't have the mullet back in the under-8s at Fish Creek.
So, taking you back to Fish Creek there, obviously your old man heavily involved in football for obviously Collingwood, and footy was, I'm sure, on the TV and you were at games quite regularly. Was it something that you really enjoyed as a youngster and then maybe saw it as a career path?
Yeah, a little bit, I guess. I guess that evolves as you go on and go through the grades a little bit. But look, we got dragged to the footy, no doubt about that. Dad was still playing and coaching at Fish Creek, so he was my coach pretty much through all my juniors before I got into senior footy. But no, I used to go and watch Dad play and used to run the boundary for the A grade and or the B grade and. While I was playing juniors, and then eventually cracked it into the senior team, and yeah, things went on from there. Basically, you know, I got to play one game or two games of footy with Dad in the B group, which was a bit of a highlight for me.
Bloody oath.
Dad was a pretty good player, and sons and dads don't get to play that too often. But I had the privilege of playing with him. I think I even got into a blue trying to stick up for him at one game, but didn't know what I was doing, but I think I was flying the flag in some regard. But that was a lot of fun playing with Dad, yeah.
So you obviously played under-8s. Did you follow that through, under-14s, under-16s?
Yeah, we had the under-16s, under-18 comp. I remember back then there was it started off with the fourths, thirds, B grade and seniors, but at half time of the A grade game, they used to have a competition called the fifths, and I don't even know how old we were, but it was obviously like very much junior Colts or Oz kick back then, and can't really remember even if I touched the ball, but we used to run out at half time and have a quick kick and a catch at the half time of the A grade, and yeah, eventually my way into the fourths and the thirds with Dad coaching, and it was pretty successful. We won a few flags, and I didn't have much involvement with being the best players or one of the better players back then. I wasn't a great junior. My footy started to develop more as I got into senior footy, and I was pretty much taught by a bloke called Tony Waters, who spent some time at Hawthorn, and we managed to get him down to Fish Creek as a coach, and that's where he really took an interest in my footy and helped me improve a couple of parts of my game, and was eventually selected to play in the seniors. And I think I only played a couple of reserves games ever at Fish Creek. Most of my time was at in the A grade, and lucky enough to win a league best and fairest and a couple of club best and fairest. And yeah, things got noticed from there. At that stage down there, we didn't have we had zones. We were zoned to St Kilda and Footscray. Barry Stanfield went to Footscray.
Yeah, I was going to say Barry Stanfield. Yep.
Yeah, the Hamses, McGannons and Weidemanns all ended up in St Kilda. So I had a couple of cracks at St Kilda. We used to play in a permit. We used to go down and play on a permit, played a couple of reserves games for them, and during the year, and went back to Fish Creek and played the rest of the year and did a pre-season in 85, I reckon it was, 84, 85 at St Kilda, but didn't really pan out. And following year, got asked to go down to Richmond, train with them, and then Collingwood invited me out in January. So I dumped Richmond for Collingwood because that's who we barracked for and Dad played for. So went down there, and the great Michael Taylor from Norwood was coaching Collingwood Nerves at that stage. Little did I know that years down the track that we'd come in contact again at the Crows. So unfortunately didn't make it too much, didn't make any impact in the trial games or training with Collingwood, and was told to go back to Fish Creek, but ended up moving to Canberra for 2 years to play for Eastlake, and that's where Andy Bennett spotted me when he was coaching West Torrens down in Tassie. I was down playing in the carnival for the ACT. Yeah, and he invited me across, and pretty much that's where it all started. And lucky enough for me too, I thought I was never going to get a chance at playing VFL as it was then, until the Crows formed and got on the 120-man list there. And lucky enough to keep out of trouble with Cornsey and got down to the final 52, and the whole story starts again, really.
So we might just back up just a touch. What age were you when you were playing A grade at Fish Creek? Because we've had a couple of guests who were very, very young. I sort of see you being in that same group.
Yeah, pretty much. I reckon I was 18, 19, I reckon it was. I reckon, it was way before I was 21 years old. But like most country kids, and you see it in the local footy here, if you're good enough as a junior to play senior footy, you get that opportunity. So I reckon I was playing around 17, 18 years of age.
Of course, then in 19, so a couple of years at Eastlake, and what was that like there in terms of what did you think standard-wise and all that, and living in you enjoy the warmth of Canberra too as well, mate?
I'm not quite sure where you got the warmth from.
Yes,
that
bloody
might have been
freezing.
Wood either. But I really liked that experience. It was only the competition only had 6 teams in it, and very much dominated by Ainslie, Queanbeyan, and Belconnen were around the mark. We played in the finals both years under Neil Pleming from Coolaman over in the Riverina. As I said, got knocked out in the 2 prelims, but I thought that competition was a pretty strong competition, albeit only the 6 teams. But Dwayne Massey at that stage was playing for Tuggeranong as well.
Yep. Good player, Dwayne. Pretty tough, pretty big, pretty strong. Yep.
Yeah, he was a good player for Tuggeranong, and but I thought that the competition was of a pretty good standard back then. Yeah.
And then you came over to West Torrens, and I will be honest, that's where I first saw it. It was a trial game against Nord at the home of football, at the parade, and you stood Jars, because Jars had just arrived at Nord as well. And so I went to have a look at Jarman, and all of a sudden you notice things far more when you're watching the person as a player of your club, and notice, geez, how quick his hands were inside and that side of things. But also notice this bloody long-haired left footer for Woodville West Torrens. You played very well that day, Weed.
Yeah, and I do remember that game, and I remember another trial game down at Victor Harbour, and that I played well in that game also. And it was, I didn't know much about the SANFL. All I knew about the SANFL was that it was probably the second best competition outside of the VFL. Yep. And I wanted to be a part of that. That was the best footy that I could play in. I couldn't make the VFL.
Yep.
So the second best competition I wanted to be a part of. And I really set myself to sort of, I guess, make an impact or get a regular game. I just didn't want to wallow around in the 2s and end up back at Fish Creek or wherever. So I really trained hard and concentrated hard and did all the right things, I guess. And I think it paid off me a little bit. And the good thing about not knowing much of the competition, I didn't have any knowledge of any of the players either. So when you're standing drumming, it was just another opponent for me, which was a good thing because then I pretty much had no fear factor of who I was playing against. I just knew it was an opponent that it had to play against and beat and compete against. So I think that was a good thing for me, not having or knowing much about the opposition or the competition. I just went about and did what I thought I had to do.
And what about that year at West Torrens when then?
Yeah, because the merger was sort of starting to happen. What are your recollections of that?
Oh, I love my time at West Torrens and part of a WhatsApp past players group. There's a lot of banter goes around, which we all have these days. It really made a big impact on my footy. I've made lifelong friends out of just that 1 year at West Torrens, and the iconical sort of year too, the last year of Woodville and West Torrens. You know, I was able to play the 19 games, played the last game ever at Adelaide Oval, and
geez, that was a big day, Wade.
It was a big day. Alan Jakovich killed us, kicked 8, I think, but it was almost a pleasure watching him run around and see some really good play from him and kicking too many goals from our point of view as well. Were hard to stop. But I really enjoyed that year at West Torrens. I just thought it was a great club. Probably partied a little too much than the footy, but I really enjoyed the year there, and I had a good year in that environment as well.
And then you obviously rock up to pre-season of a new club, and we've spoken with Barmy and Bruce Winter about the size of the squads. What's going through your mind with, 52, 55 players rolling around and trying to stay on the list?
Oh, well, there's a lot more than that.
Right. And I guess at the same time, the Crows come into the competition, so I was there pretty much at the same time. So the merger had to sort itself out a little bit with that group, with Barmy and Brucey Winter. But having known that a few of us were down at the Crows trying to try out as well. So it was pretty tough. I didn't get off to a real good start at the Crows. I couldn't go out on the first few weeks because I was still eligible to get drafted. I was talking to Geelong, couldn't get officially invited out until after the draft. I didn't really take care of myself over the break. I went away. I had a trip to Bathurst. I come back a little bit overweight. And I remember the first night at training, we had a 5K time trial or something. 120 blokes go out there and do a couple of laps of footy park and out in the stadium reserve. We run through the tea trees when they were there, and 2 laps of that, and then a couple of laps of footy park when we got back into the stadium. And I only beat 2 blokes home, and that was Rudy Manamaker and Greg Phillips. So I was in trouble from day one.
That's not exactly a tick there, Wade.
No, it wasn't. And we can laugh about it now, but it certainly probably didn't look fun when I was running across the line there. But look, you start somewhere and you grow, and I knew that was only sort of temporary because we were dominated heavily by our training schedule, and 13 days out of 14 we trained, and it didn't give you a lot of time to play up. You had to be in pretty good nick, and I think Graham sort of saw something in me a little bit that he could use to his advantage, and as I said, lucky enough to be there at the 52. There was some blokes getting cold after training sessions, and you knew you didn't want to be part of that group. So I was pretty thankful and did the right thing, I guess, to be lucky enough to be in the 52.
You're in a reasonably unique position there because the Crows come in and West Torrens and Woodville are merging all at the same time. You're having to fight your way, probably not as much on the Woodville-West Torrens merger side of things, but with a million players coming out to practice. But then the same at the Crows, you've really had to fight your way, into that squad to remain eligible to play.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think you're always summing up who you might be fighting a spot for, I guess, and we're trying to work out who's going to make it. I reckon there was always probably a dozen or so that were going to be a sure thing, you know.
Yep.
With Dermots and Jars and these type of fellas were always going to be there, and you know, Big Romy Negri and David Pittman were probably always going to be in that ruck sort of role type of thing. And then you look at the midfield and you go, maybe a chance to get a little bit of a run through there, but at the end of the day, I always thought I was going to be maybe a half back or a half forwarder. Maybe with a few limited opportunities, but worst case scenario, if I get on the bench, I'll be able to play anywhere. So I thought I might have been able to grasp a spot without getting too far ahead of yourself. You always thought that, and probably 50 other blokes did as well, thought you might be in the last 52. And I guess a couple of trial games and things, and I think maybe I had something else in my makeup that no one else at the club, and I think that might have helped me sway Cornsy's decision as well.
A bit of mongrel, the left footer probably also helps a bit there, Wade.
Yeah, and I think a good year at West Torrens.
Yeah, had a good year.
The year before also helps a little bit. Yeah.
Did you feel like you had to adapt your game a little bit, or was it the game adapts to you a little bit with the Crows?
I think I have to adapt. I definitely had to adapt to what Cornsy's philosophy with the way we wanted to play, and that was quick hands, quick ball movement, and skill level. So it was a matter of changing my style a little bit. Instead of grabbing and taking off and using the palm to get blokes out of the road and free myself up. It was more about getting it and quick giving it and bringing other people's into the play. And I think that's one part of the game that I had to adapt to that Cornsy wanted to be able to make his squad. So definitely, I think that benefited me too, going back to the Eagles as well. It definitely had to change up to the style that Cornsy wanted to play.
So how did you find that transitioning between the Crows and Woodville West Torrens at that stage? Because like we've talked about with a lot of our guests around about that time, is that you weren't purely on Adelaide's list. You were going back and forth between the Crows and Woodville West Torrens?
Yeah, it was tough in both regards because, you know, it was almost, here comes the AFL blokes back sort of thing into we're trying to, man, you're just going to come back and do this, blah, blah, blah. So it was always not walking around on broken glass, but you had to be respectful of what those guys were trying to do as well. They were trying to make a list. And, you know, only probably half, I guess, from each team made it in the end. And there was a few good players that sort of didn't get on there.
Yeah.
And even to the point where, you know, and I bring Ronnie Fuller in as an example, dominated the centre for Woodville in a long period of time, but couldn't quite crack the merger A-grade side.
Yeah.
So there's still some good quality players running in the at that early stage. So, and hence how good the reserves and the senior were. The reserves won a lot of flags during that period as well because there was some quality running around in there.
At least playing under Barmy probably adjusted that side of things and went with a flow a bit more than, say, Craigie did at Nord. Wasn't Craigie's strength. He admits that. Enjoyed playing under Barmy, mate?
Yeah, it did. A lot of the times we train at the Crows and we'd only go back to the Eagles for the last session sort of thing, last training session. So it was always a little bit tough going back, training and playing. But I guess most people would pretty much knew that you were probably more than likely going to get a game of footy in front of them. So, like I said, we had to go back. There was a few of us who would go back and you know, keep in mind we had to be respectful to the blokes that were trying their guts out to get a game of footy. But Barmy was really good. He just, you know, no pressure. You come back, you train, you play, you move on. He would, you know, pretty much knew we were fit, knew we had our we knew we had done our training. All we had to do was mixed in and play within the group, adapt to the group and the players around you, even though you had a light Thursday night session with him and then game day. But he was really good to make you feel warm, welcome, relaxed, and go and play a part of a team.
And that's Barmy's strength, which we've seen time and time again.
I think so, 100% for sure, and I think, there's other coaches that made it harder for other blokes, but Barmy pretty much left it for you open, whatever you wanted to do, he just open arms, come back in, because I think he knew we were going to benefit his team by coming back and, just let us go and play footy.
And Weed, I'm sure you all of Pete, myself, you and all our listeners out there, wishing Barmy all the best. He's going through some pretty serious health battles at the moment, and I've left a message for him today. I'll speak to him the next couple of days at some stage, but just wishing Barmy all the best, big time. So
100%, 100%.
So you're trying to mix back in with Woodville West Torrens, trying to get yourself a game at the Crows. You get your debut for the Crows, and obviously played okay to get a few more games there. But when did you sort of realise that you might be a bit of a cult figure at the Crows?
Yeah, well, that sort of thing evolves as time goes on, I guess. Played my first game against Hawthorn out at Waverley, and I think we had 6 rounds to go and played. I broke my hand. I missed 3 weeks, and then trained. And I vividly remember training on the last session and had a shower, packed my gear up, was walking out the door, and Cornsey said, where are you going? I said, I don't know, mate, I'm just finished up, just going home. He said, you better hang around for the team meeting. I said, okay. Do I need to be there for that? He said, well, you're playing. I got, okay.
Wow.
Bit different way to be told.
Yeah, well, look, I didn't expect to be in because I was just coming back from a broken hand. I still had stitches in my hand. I was wearing a guard so I could train and all that sort of thing. And, that was how Cornsey told me. It was a bit of a shock for me because I didn't expect to be playing because I missed 3 weeks of footy and played on the 4th. But that was a really positive thing that Cornsey did for me then. I knew he had my back then and backed me in and played the last 2 games for the Crows that year. And then, 94, 95 were my 2 sort of best years. And I guess when you get in front of your home crowd, they start to latch on a little bit, when you play 7 or 8 games in a row, the crowd sort of get to see you a bit more and latch on a little bit more. And I think I related to a lot of the supporters as well. I had a bad haircut, played a little bit rugged, liked hurting a few blokes, tackled strongly. And I think a lot of the Crow supporters like seeing that. Don't know how the chant started, but it's something that grew. Bruce Lindsay reckons I pinched it off him. He used to get at West Torrens. He holds that against me. But it's something that grew and grew.
It did.
Big.
Bloody oath it did. It was good fun too.
Yeah, I think so. Even when I did bugger up, they still cheered. So it worked in my favour both ways. But yeah, look, it was a great thing. People still do it today. My mum used to get it at the netball at Fish Creek Netball Club rooms. It gathered momentum. It was a good thing. Yeah, it was a good thing.
Absolutely. Obviously, your debut, as you mentioned there, against Hawthorn at Waverley. Round 1, the Crows gave Hawthorn a little bit of a touch-up. Were you guys expecting fire and brimstone that day out at Waverley?
I don't think so. I don't think so. The game was played pretty fair, I reckon, in cold, wintry conditions out at Waverley Park.
You mean just a regular Melbourne day, really?
Just a regular Melbourne day. And I was very familiar with Waverley. Waverley was only an hour and a half from Fish Creek, and we used to go down and watch Collingwood play there. in the night series. I don't know if it was the Ansett Cup back then, but we used to go down and watch. I was there for the Geelong Grand Final with Kerry Good kick the goal after the siren, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
So we used to go down to Waverley a fair bit. So Waverley was a bit of maybe a home ground for me a little bit, but
Okay.
I remember coming on midway through the first quarter and felt at home a little bit, even though Hawthorn got us that day reasonably well. There was, it was played in pretty good spirits. I don't think they were out to destroy us too much from the first game.
Do you think the slower conditions might have helped your game a little bit there out at Waverley?
Yeah, no doubt. Yep. Certainly, I wasn't built for speed, I don't reckon. I never had any. Hopefully I used my nous a little bit and able to break a tackle or two or fend off and get myself into clean air and get a kick away or a handball away. So I certainly think I could be a little bit stronger in the heavier conditions.
Righto, we've got to go to the 93 final series. Like the win against Hawthorn.
I didn't think you'd bring that up.
Yeah,
well, we
sort of
tossed and turned, but we have to. Yeah.
The game against Hawthorn was fantastic. The frustration against Carlton where Task had about 4 pings and got marked on the goal line. Then Cornsey blamed him afterwards for us losing. Sean has always taken that really well, Pig's ass. And then, of course, the next week where the first half against Eston, I still say is the best I've ever seen best I've actually seen the Crows play, and it was probably nearly on a thing with Melbourne in the grand final. Their half, it was that good. And of course, then the miss by Jars, etc. And yeah, certainly that day had a bit of everything, and the bitterly disappointing result in the end, mate.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I still think if we had made it, we could have won the flag and probably woulda, coulda, shoulda, but we didn't. And many people talk about that game, what happened at halftime, this, that, and the other. And I once again, and you talk about vividly remember things, I had a little knock to the arm, and I was just sitting in the players' meeting room or the coach's room with the ice pack on my arm, just giving that a bit of a spell. And the mood in there was really good. We certainly weren't ahead of ourselves. We knew we were in a good position. We knew we still had a job to do. No one was getting carried away. There was no fanfare. It was pretty much down to business even at half time. And then after that, those couple of misses, Reddy missed one, and
Rennie missed his just before half time,
just before half time. That one nearly made it 50 points. And I just don't think that we handled that pressure or that finals pressure. I think we went back into our shells a little bit because first half we were playing beautiful, free-flowing type of footy that we wanted to do and had been doing all year. And then we just sort of almost shut up shop a little bit and probably started playing more reactive than proactive.
I will say I've only watched the game again once, and I forced myself to do it because I thought the umpiring was terrible at the ground. And, watching it again, and from an umpire's perspective, you've lost by that stage, so you're getting rid of a lot of the emotion. But, geez, you did not have any – let's just say the Victorian team got the benefit big time after half time.
The home ground advantage.
Oh, yeah, back there.
Yeah, look, it was, it's funny. We talk about, 6-goal lead or an 8-goal lead or whatever and think you'd never peg that back at some stage. But as footy goes on, we even see it now, a huge lead is almost hard to defend because the opposition have a real crack at it. We see Collingwood do it nowadays pretty well. Other teams do it pretty well. But we certainly didn't cope with it being in front that day. And they were charging and Sheedy up to his master classes again at 3/4 time, getting the boys up. And, another West Torrens bloke hurt us too.
Yes, just a tad, yes.
So, he hurt us big time. And, I think momentum's hard to stop. And when they got it, we were never going to wrestle it back off.
Yeah, there was Michael Long, he was brilliant now. like, let's be honest,
Yeah.
there wasn't too many people that pants jars playing in the middle, and he was unreal that day. And Buick was brilliant up forward as well.
Yeah. Couple of seasoned veterans have got him over the line where we didn't quite have that in our armoury, particularly in finals. Yeah.
Do you feel like the coaching moves may have helped or hindered that a little bit?
Oh no! Well, I do say it's Cornsy's fault because me and Scotty Hodges started on the bench after half time, so I put it down to that. We went on the park, but I think that I don't think there's still 18 blokes out on the field that couldn't react, and we've had some pretty good players out there as well. I just don't think we cope with it. Yeah.
I do think Cornsy's treatment of Scott that day was bizarre because they were panicking about him. We had Modra, obviously, but Essendon were panicking about Hodges as well. And, I just couldn't work that out. And to this day, still can't work that one out. But anyway.
Yeah, look, I guess a two-pronged attack is better than a one-pronged attack.
Yeah.
And I think, if there was one move looking back on it, probably Scotty should have played a bit more in the second half.
Righto, this is one thing you mightn't be aware of. So, I'm sure you might remember the banners. So, the Corns for Columbia, the free OJ jail Corns. Loretta Bobbitt says, give Corns the chop. Actually, there's another story with that because Limo, we had a contest at Adelaide Uni Footy Club because that stems from Uni Footy Club. And as you know, having played against and been involved against Uni, the sense of humour is a tad different. And we had a contest at Hold Your Bowlies one night, and that was Limo's, was the Loretta Bobbitt one. And anyway, out of that, at that stage under Cornsey, as we know, it was pretty regimented. And you and Anthony Ingerson were on the bench about 3 or 4 weeks in a row. And you were the two of you were jogging. And I'm not sure if it was whether Ingo picked up first or you started to look for the banners. And you saw the free OJ jail Corns, and the two of you just pissed yourselves. And you were both trying to run off the ground, not look at the other one because it was just making you laugh more. So, yes. So to Gordo out there and the late Pete Russo, we had a lot of fun with those banners, and that was also under that. SAFM used to have a contest for the best banner. We took it up, and the guy at SAFM goes, boys, that's brilliant. Yep. And you're obviously the best banner, but you can't win with that. So, so we had some fun with those, Wade.
Well, there's been some good banners over the history, and I remember one that regarded myself with Mercantile Health Insurance or something.
Right.
And they had it at Footy Park on Southern Grandstand. It was upside down. And it said, hey, you're the bloke at standing lead. I hope you got your insurance. So
that's right. Yeah, I do remember that now. Yeah.
Purposely had it upside down so the bloke lying on the ground could read it. Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe.